Welcome to this episode of the $1 Million Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and before we get started, if you want to know exactly how to win again and again, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now to watch something I've put together for you. Now let's get going into this episode of $1 Million Mastermind. I'm excited to be talking this afternoon with Mike Zeller. And he is talking to us live from Chattanooga, lives in Nashville. And so welcome, Mike.
Larry, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on and can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, let's have some fun. Let's talk about winning. Mike, that's what we do here. We talk about
We're talking about winning? I love it.
We're talking about real world winning. And I never had the ability. I played all the sports in high school. I never had the ability to go pro, but one thing I learned my lesson about winning in high school, and I learned winning is better than losing. And once you get the taste of it, you never want to go back. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And there's a lot of fake experts out there. And the podcast, Mike, is all about real world insight from people who have made things happen, and they just haven't thought about ideas and learned a bunch of principles. They've actually lived the concepts, thinking, strategies that will allow a person to be successful, whatever business you're in. And so, the winning patterns fall into a similar thing regardless of what venue you're in or what occupation. And so anyway, to let people know, you founded 12 companies and you work with new businesses now. You're on the Forbes Coaches Council, which I'm curious about. You've generated over 300 million in sales. You've helped launched 100 startup businesses. And anyway, been featured in Fox, Forbes, Business Insider, Huffington Post, and on and on and on. So anyway, congratulations on getting off to a great start in your career. And you got a lot of excitement in front of you, it looks like, Mike. So let's talk about this. So when people will meet you, and they'll, you met people today, when they meet you for the first time, and they'll assume, like they do with all successful people, this guy had it easy. This guy fell out of the crib into a life of luxury. He was pampered every step of the way, had every advantage. And maybe you did, I don't know, but it's always fun to find out the formative years and how you got on the track that you're on now. So how did you get on this track?
Yeah, great question, Larry. And so on the entrepreneurial journey, I always had this craving and this drive. And I don't know if it's the firstborn child syndrome or what, but I was certainly very motivated. And my dad was an immigrant from Germany, 8th grade education. Grew up in post-World War II Germany, where he qualified. He was born in 1940, and he qualified for malnutrition nourishment in the Allied camps that they would take kids in after the war. And they were like, interesting side note, they were very much like a lot of Germans in opposition to Hitler, but also in terror of Hitler. But they had, he told me recently that they had Hitler's sign. Every German had to have a picture of Hitler hanging up in their house. Yeah. And the soldiers would come in and inspect the house, and they had it hung up in a closet in the back of the house. So, but it was still a crazy world, during that time. My dad saw the Jews walk down his street post-concentration camp, emaciated, just parched with nourishment and skin and bones. So he remembers that as like a 5 or 6 year old, and we don't always remember, we don't always remember that our story didn't actually begin with us. Our
Right.
story, we entered into a story, the story of
Yeah.
our parents, the generation in the world, what is happening. And so I really began before I began, which is a complicated, long story.
Yeah. And what part of Germany was this?
He grew up in right outside of Munich, which is Germany's second largest city, typically besides Berlin.
Hey,
So,
that's where my relatives are from.
oh, really? Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, coming out of the same area,
Yeah.
Vidal. And
Yeah. That's
so
cool.
so you grew up, and where were you? Where did you grow up? What part of the
I,
country?
I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. My mom was a farm girl. We tease her as a hillbilly, a redneck grandmother. Is her how I tease her, but she's amazing, and she was a teacher for 30 something years in public education, and Kentucky hillbilly. That's what how she sometimes self describes herself, and so grew up on a small horse farm. My dad eventually did well enough, blue collar, working his way up, and eventually starting his own horse racing business. But it was small, had one or two employees at most, and but they taught us Protestant work ethic, do the right thing, fairness, all those different things. And I really learned some great work ethic from them, but also appreciation for discipline. My dad was very disciplined, still is very disciplined. So I learned a lot of those important life skills from my dad and my mom.
Well, the thing is that uh, unfortunately, horses require a lot of upkeep. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of a lot
they
of
do.
a lot of feeding and cleaning the stalls and uh, growing your own hay or buying it, and
Yeah,
it's a lot of work. And if you don't, it teaches discipline. When you're in the farmers uh, have a very disciplined life. They have to. And if you grow up
they
in
do.
that environment, you learn discipline from an early age. But that
Hmm.
doesn't mean you necessarily carry it with you. But you obviously had the feeling, I don't want to be a farmer all my life. I've got actually quite a
No,
number of friends who grew up on horse farms, and it was cleaning out those stalls when they were young,
no.
cured them of any love of horses or horse farms.
Yeah,
Motivated them to get out and get an education and do something else. You know, but what,
yeah.
where was the first time you started thinking about life outside of the farm?
Probably the first couple of times I had to clean a horse stall, where my mom made me pull weeds, and I was like, even when I was a little kid, we had a picture of me holding, like, standing in a mud puddle, and I was like, just like, I was all muddy, and I was like, ugh, I didn't like getting dirty and being smelling like the barn, and the work ethic was one thing. I didn't mind the work ethic. I like pushing myself. But I was like, I'm meant for something different. I'm meant to use my mind. I could feel that as a young kid, and even, now, my book, it's one of the main four main quadrants. You're defining life experiences, and so I take people through unique talents, define life experiences, key relationships, and your values and passions. But if you timeline your life, and you're bringing up some memories I had even forgotten. So my book is about helping people find their deepest area of genius, and during that time, I remember, like, thinking, no, I'm not gonna. Even as a young boy, 6, 7 years old, I'm gonna do something different than this. Even though my dad was one of the best in the country at the time, in racing and training harness horses, so I was proud of him, but just knew that was not my path.
So what you're saying is, from an early age, you knew you were a pansy.
I would call softy in the yeah. I didn't
Oh,
like to get dirty. That's true.
yeah. Well, but the thing is, isn't it? It's kind of like, I don't know. Do you have kids?
Yeah, we have an 8-month-old little girl named Sonnet.
Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
the funny thing about kids is when they arrive, they are a pack. As they are who they are.
That's right.
You can influence, you can encourage and whatever, but they're going to be what they're going to be. And it's interesting how early sometimes that will start to show itself, by, you can't change who you are.
Yeah.
You could not change that reaction that you had as a child. You didn't want to change it, but the thing is, like, most kids would not react that way, but you did, and immediately you started moving, started looking at life a little differently. It had to impact you. Hey, listen, there's a lot of information online, but there aren't a lot of people who've actually done something. In my case, I've actually built a successful business that's accrued over $5 billion in assets under management and has done well even during trying times. Now, if you want to know exactly how I've done this, go to whiteelementwinning.com/webinar now. I've compressed a decade of learning into 5 short weeks just for those of you who want to give yourself an incredible advantage and are tired of waiting and watching others move up.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, my brother, for example, my mom used to try and bribe us to read books. She'd pay us $1 for every book we read. And soon enough, she had to quit paying me because I was reading too many books, and my brother wasn't reading any. Like, he never read. She jokes he never read one for the dollar. But my brother loved being outside, and he was building ponds, and he was digging ditches and holes, and he was just outdoorsy oriented. Um, and like, I have a lot of, we both have a good work ethic, but and mental toughness, but mine is just different. I love the intellectual sport, and he loved the physical sport more. But he's certainly very intelligent. And then my daughter, we could pick up on things because I study this, and I would argue I'm in the top 1% of 1% for reading people's patterns and strengths. Once that's why I wrote a book on it. But my daughter, we could pick up on things while she was in the womb, what she was most likely like, clues.
Wow.
For example, at our baby shower, we went, we had whatever, 25 people at the baby shower last summer. And guess what? She was super quiet for the next 4 or 5 hours, to the point my wife started freaking out and made us go to Vanderbilt Hospital to scan and make sure she's okay, because my wife was just paranoid perpetually for something going wrong. Turns out it was just totally good, and everything was fine. But when she was around people, she would get really quiet for hours later. If there was a lot of noise, she'd get quiet. And today, guess what? We take her to a big family gathering, and got 10 other kids and 20 people. She is quiet as a mouse. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't just looks around and observes. But when she's an introvert. But we're also picking up she's probably high on the DEI spectrum on the DISC profile, where she knows where she's going. She's got a dominant personality because she's very opinionated about certain things. Literally smacks her hand as a little 7-month-old on the table when she wants something or doesn't want something. Her first word was no. She just shouted out at 7 months old. We're trying to feed her something. She said no, and smacks her hand on the table and shakes her head side to side, because she didn't want the food we were trying to give her. And so there's clues about your wiring scattered throughout your life, but the point is to pay attention to them.
When it comes as far as a strong will, James Dobson a long time ago wrote a book about that, and the strong will child. And he came down to it as the bottom line of it is they're all strong will. Some are better at hiding it than others. Your daughter is obviously one that doesn't want to hide the fact that she wants what she wants, and so, but that's good. And so what can people learn? We've been talking for a few minutes here from a approach to life. What can people internalize here? And I want to hear about your book in a minute. What can people take away and start? Because this is all about thinking. You have got to be your own best self coach. You've got to learn how to sort through these issues in life and make decisions going forward where you can be the most productive. And one of the things that you should be picking up from what we're talking about here is that you are who you are. You don't
Hmm.
have, it doesn't do any good to apologize, your best self anyway. You can't change the way you are. You don't have to apologize for what you're interested in and what you're good at. You come as a complete package of interests, aptitudes. And then as you grow up, you add to that a certain package of unique experiences, and they impact you in totally different ways a lot of times because of who you are than if you had a twin brother or sister that was, you know, had different interests. They went through the same experiences and they would have interpreted all different, like you and your brother.
Hmm.
Both were exposed to the dollar for every book you read type opportunity,
Yeah.
so the thing is that we all are unique. And so what should people say to themselves when they look for, because people are always trying to pull you over into this activity and their activities, their things they're interested and excited about. And it's easy to lose a big chunk of your life getting yourself. I have a friend in Dallas, and he's like my kryptonite. He can talk me into it, the stupidest things, but it's something he's super excited about. And I just have to,
Yeah.
I've learned over the years, it cost me many years, but I've learned over the years, when Mike starts talking, beware, put up the screen, because he's a salesman off the charts. And before you know it, you're going to be super excited about this thing that you really couldn't care less about. And so just don't make any commitments. I'm going to go on that trip. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get involved in that, because people like that. And sometimes when you're young, you have parents and you don't know what's right. A lot of
Yeah.
times you feel like other people see things about me. Maybe I should pay attention to it. But how should people interpret that in terms of learning how to trust their gut about what is right for them and what is not, and how powerful that is?
Yeah. Why does the FBI do lie detector tests on our bodies, not our words? It's because our bodies don't lie. Our
Yeah.
bodies are honest. Our bodies are aligned and congruent. So, I was just with some real estate developers I'm consulting and helping them scale and set the stage for their growth. And we were talking, and they have some things lined up on their schedule that they just are energetic drags. And I call it the life or death list, which is the equivalent of your start doing or stop doing list. And when you just feel this negative energy towards doing something, that means it might not be right for you anymore, or at least not right now. There might be something else, and it might be something that's out of your wheelhouse, out of your zone of genius. Yes, we have to grit our teeth and do certain things like accounting and other things like prepare for taxes, and but you want even that, like, how can you minimize what you do on that if it's not in your wheelhouse? So one of the things I've seen is there's clues scattered about our lives, and just paying attention to what your body is saying, what your heart is saying, and instead of living disconnected. Sometimes we're living someone else's dream, a parent's dream, a coach's dream, a mentor's dream, a dream of the culture we grew up in, instead of your unique purpose and path. And to be remarkable, we have to choose our own path and choose our own purpose, and it's there for everybody. But you have to hunt for it and create self-awareness around it.
Now, here's the we're going to follow up on that, but Mike, thanks for sharing those early thoughts and ideas that occurred to you growing up and how that shaped the direction that you went in, because it's really interesting how connected we all are. It's like what you're doing today, you've been you since you hit the planet.
Yeah, it's
You
true.
know what I'm saying? And what you've told us about your daughter, you were you before you were born. So the thing is that pay attention to yourself. And if you're getting negative energy, positive energy, that reaction, that's there for a purpose. That's there to tell you something. And so, great advice. Don't live disconnected, because, one thing I've always told people is like, I don't know how great you could be, but you're never going to be great giving, piddling your way. You don't piddle your way to the top. And if you're going to be great in the things you want to be great in, it's probably going to take everything you've got to get there. So you got to make sure that's something you really want, because otherwise you'll put in a lot of effort and then just give up. It'll be too easy to give up. But if it's something you're really passionate about and really is where you need to be, you're not going to be giving up. You're going to be finding another way to keep on going.
If you enjoyed what you've heard and are dead serious about finding out for yourself exactly how this works in the real world, I've taken the most valuable business lessons I've learned over 40 years and put them into something for you to watch. Go to whiteelementwinning.com/webinar now in order to move up as fast as possible. I'm Larry Weidel, and I run the $1 Million Mastermind. Go, go, go.